Namaste. Welcome to the series called The Latest On. And today we talk about protein. The reason why we are talking about protein is because I'm often asked this question कि मैं प्रोटीन के लिए क्या खाऊं? And I always feel कि मेरा दिमाग छोड़ के बाकी कुछ भी खाओ, मेरा भी दिमाग मत खाओ, खुद का भी दिमाग मत खाओ. Don't even eat into your data plan trying to look for protein sources. क्योंकि क्या है that communities which have always been vegetarian or communities which have always been non-vegetarian or communities which have always been eating what is now called as plant-based, which is vegetarian food but they are not eating dairy, have always existed globally and no one really has fallen short on protein. You know, this may sound like news to you, but there is really no such thing as a global protein gap. All right, but over the last 10 years there has been a whole lot of noise on protein. So we have been made to feel by the noise around protein is that number one, we are falling short on protein, and number two, we need to eat more meat to somehow meet our needs of protein. This noise is made by a handful of meat and dairy companies, also called as the big protein. And interestingly, these meat and dairy companies also have investments in alternatives to dairy and alternatives to meat. मतलब दर्द भी हम लोग, दवा भी हम लोग. And number three, which is really the most important thing that concerns all of us, is that this noise has led to a distortion in the way we naturally or culturally eat. So vegetarian people have begun to think of at least including an egg in their diet to meet their protein requirements, if not meat. Non-vegetarian people have also moved away or from their cultural diets where they would eat meat a few times in the week to eating meat at every single meal of their day. And then overall this has led to overconsumption of meat over the last few years, and this has happened across the globe. So this is one aspect of the problem, you know, the distortion in the way we naturally, traditionally and culturally eat. Where does science really lie on all of these things? So when USDA released their guidelines, they actually used words that probably one has never heard of in diet conversations. And they actually use words like your diet or the food that you eat has to be according to your personal preferences, it has to be according to your cultural traditions, and it has to be within your budgetary constraints. आप देखिए तो every time when you start eating or thinking about more protein, you also start spending that much more money on products and on foods which bring you more protein, because that is really the name of the game. If no one is going to make profit out of this perceived shortage of protein that you're feeling, तो फिर फायदा ही क्या है? Profitability is what people are going for here, is what the big protein is going for here. It's not really health. The real problem that we face as a society is not that we are falling short on protein, but the fact is that a lot of us are actually having to face hunger. We are many people who simply do not have the access to food, and because of lack of access to food, they are falling short on all nutrients. All nutrients like carbohydrate, protein, fat, vitamins, minerals, folic acid, iron, all of it. So the real problem is hunger. The real problem is poverty and access to nutritious food. The problem is not shortage of protein. So if you are a person who has adequate access to good food, to nutritious food, who actually has access to 3 fresh meals at least at home, then you are not going through a protein insufficiency, and you do not need to include anything that is alien to your culture into your diet. That's the main thing that you really need to understand.